Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And I guess we're going to do a follow-up to the video we did the other day about Gen Z and working conditions. And we've got this new article from the New York Times. Gen Zers see work as dehumanizing and dystopian.
Well, you know, sometimes work can't be those things, but you still have to, you know, do them to get money.
Well, they don't like that concept, some of these people. Now, it's very weird. I want to say we've got Schrodinger's Gen Z going on here because originally we were going to do a video talking about how they're thinking Gen Z is actually the most conservative generation in a long time. But then you read this and then you look at, what's going on in the world and the elections. And it seems like you've got another part of Gen Z that wants to push into socialism because they want to be taken care of.
Well, they never had to see what it was like. You know, we grew up, seeing different countries like USSR, and then the whole thing with, the West, the Berlin Wall, the West Germany and East Germany, I guess I'm trying to say is East Germany and all that stuff. And it's like, so we've seen it, Cuba, all those things, we saw it.
Yeah. And I understand, things are scary right now. I understand the world, it seems like it's turned upside down, but I don't think turning over control of your life to some government or corporate entity is necessarily a solution, but the alternative is you're going to have to work.
Well, there's no alternative. That's what I don't understand. Like, you guys don't, for some reason, there's this misconception that if there's socialism, then you don't have to, because you don't have to work because it's dehumanizing and dystopian. It's like, no, if there's socialism, you still have to work, but you have no choice. And your choices, what's not true. Your choices are much more limited in what you're allowed to do, but you'll still be required to work.
Yes. Well, they want universal basic income. This is weird, though, because we saw the exact same thing with millennials, and this is the thing we talked about before, especially in the art communities. They wanted a universal basic income, so a lot of people could just sit home and draw all day, draw comics.
Yes, yes. I remember
every
write
other
blogs or whatever. Yeah.
Oh God, every other artist, writer, wannabe, whatever on the internet that you talk to, they were all like, "I want universal basic income because I don't think I should have to go work retail. I don't think I should have to go get a construction job. I just want to sit at home and draw pictures all day."
It's like it doesn't work that way. That's not how it is. Okay, like example. People are losing their shit because for food stamps and SNAP and assistance programs, you're going to have to go do 20 hours of work or 20 hours of volunteer work, which it was that way a few years ago. I know it was.
Yeah.
At least in PA it was. You're going to have to do some work to be able to get your free or income, whatever you're going to call it, SNAP benefits. That's the same thing. You don't get to sit at home and just get handed all these things for free. That has been a last few years thing. It's not, that's not going to maintain, it's not going to stay. So if you don't like that, you're not going to like what you think you're going to like.
So let's take a look at this article and see what the case is for work being dehumanizing and dystopian. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. You'll get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo.
Go out to Geeky's Kickstarter. Her pin, speaking of woohoos, is up now. We've hit 8,000, so we're going to make Geeky pins. She's going to be all glittery and Christmassy, and she's working hard for Santa.
That's right, I am.
She likes to work. She's Santa's little helper, so you can either get that pin by itself or you can add it onto your pledge, and make sure you don't obliterate your pledge with the Geeky pin that happened with the Halloween pin. Some people, unfortunately, were replacing you with the other order, and they're like, "Where's the other pins?" It's like, "Oh, whoopsie doopsie, it's Kickstarter." Just make sure everything's how you want it. Thank you very much for that.
Yep.
So this comes from the New York Times as of today. Lots of crying. This is an opinion from Jessica Gross. So the older generation always discounts the workplace complaints of the younger generation.
We've all been the younger generation and had the same complaints, and you have to just suck it up and get over it sometimes, or just go find something else that you enjoy more.
It said, millennials were lazy and entitled. Gen X were slackers. Gen Z get the bad rap of being unemployable because they apparently do not prize achievement for its own sake. They'd rather be influencers because the internet has broken their brains.
But there probably are these stereotypes for a reason.
They said Gen Z doesn't even deserve the slander because the entire process of getting and keeping an entry-level job has become a grueling and dehumanizing ordeal over the past decade.
Right. And you're also discounting the fact that there are millennials and Gen Xers that also have to go find entry-level jobs now. They might have been out of the workplace for years for family reasons or whatever.
Yes.
And they're also facing the same issues. It is not just you.
Look, I'm going to be real with you, and this is, again, coming from a Gen Xer. There is no such thing as job security for anybody anymore. And that is the unfortunate truth. And we talked about it in the other video where we really only had a couple of decades where people went to work at, right out of high school, and they worked there for decades. They were retired with a gold watch. They stayed as long as they wanted to. The company, in a lot of cases, treated you like family, or at least you weren't going anywhere unless you did something really egregious. And that is not the case.
It hasn't been for a long time.
At least 20 years. At
least
probably
longer than that. I'd say more like in the 90s, maybe even,
I would say it really became noticeable in the 90s. Yeah. Because, when I entered the workforce, it was weird because we used to have a term for people that didn't stay at a job for a long time. They're called job jumpers. Mm-hmm. And it was like, if you were a job jumper, that was a bad thing. And a job jumper was somebody who didn't stay there for at least a couple of years. And even then, like, I remember having on my resume one time, like, I stayed at one place for a year, another place for like 2 years. And they were kind of like, why you keep changing jobs so much? Well, in some cases, you could only get a promotion if you actually did, go someplace else because you weren't going to get a promotion. But that was viewed as a bad thing. Now it's basic survival. Like, people, they're lucky if they get to keep a job for 2 or 3 years.
Well, a lot of people just use it they aren't going to get the job they want where they're at. So they just, use their work experience to leverage it for a better job. They actually were encouraging it a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they were. They were basically like, do a year here, 2 years there, whirlwind tour, and get to where you want to be. But yeah, nobody stays at a job forever. So this guy, Michael Madowitz, he's the principal economist at the Roosevelt Institute, described it as a traffic jam. If you're just out of college, you're trying to merge into a freeway and nobody's letting you in.
But this isn't new either. People were coming out of college all the time. They've become under fire because some of these schools got in trouble because they were promising that you were going to come out and get a job in the workforce, and they were charging people all this money for student loans and things. And then these colleges got in trouble because that people weren't going out and finding jobs, and they owed a ridiculous amount of money on the claim that you were going to be able to find a job if you had a degree. This is not new either.
Well, there's some problems there because they're talking about how Gen Z views itself as being the most rejected generation. They're talking about, job applications being submitted online. There was an entire generation, and it's partly millennials, I believe too, who thought, well, I went to school, I just push the button, submit my resume, and boom, job. And I'm going to get that $200,000 a year job to start, and everything's going to be okie dokie because I got my degree. And that's not how it works. And I tell people, you need to get some FaceTime with somebody because people hire people. And
as I said, a lot of times you submit and it'll just get put in the pile and no one will ever see it. You have to something to stand out. Yeah.
They said, some colleges boast record low admissions rates. I think because people are like, what's the point?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I mean, you don't have to go to college for everything. You really, truly don't. Like, depending on what you want to do, there's some jobs that require a degree, like if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or something like that. But a lot of jobs, people go for a degree in it just so they have that piece of paper, but you don't need to do it. You really, truly don't need to, because you're going to be owing, all these thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for, a piece of paper you can wipe your ass with.
This is wild too, because they're using AI to cut HR. So this person here is Richard Yoon. He's an economics major in Columbia. He told me when his peers have multiple interviews for jobs in finance, he asked if they heard back from any of them. They tell him, you don't understand. 19 of those 20 interviews were with bots. That's crazy.
That's probably true. That's not. I'm not surprised because it used to be algorithm before that, and like back when how long was it ago? Like 10 years ago?
15 years ago, yeah.
I don't think it's even that long. That's when Kneon got laid off from the last actual official, well, not the last one you had, but the one you've been at the longest, or you've been there for a while. And he was putting out 200 and some applications all over the damn place. And it turned out he was getting kicked out because he didn't have a college degree. Now, before that, you were beating people all the time for having degrees.
Yeah, and things changed because when, I got the other job, it was like who you knew, and it was, word of mouth. Some jobs I got because I actually got poached from a couple of companies because they're like, this not bragging, but they're like, hey, do you know a guy? Yeah, we know a guy.
Well, the one guy made up a job. One company made up a job just to put you in there.
Yeah, those days are gone for the most part, at least in corporations. But that's how people used to get jobs. And I was told, like I never had a problem getting a job when I was younger because I'd go in with my resume. I knew the drill. I'd go in, I'd look them in the eye, say, hey, I want to do this. Here's what I can do for you. And I'd make a pest of myself until I got hired. And that used to be the way. And it doesn't work that way.
No, and they say it's dystopian because, they can't even use AI words to get you seen. And, I don't think you're wrong. But again, it's not just impacting you. It's impacting anybody looking for a job across the generations. It's not just a Gen Z issue. Unfortunately, you guys are the new ones coming out into the workforce and the youngest starting out ones. It's you might see it more, but it's not a you thing. It's happening to everybody.
So here's where it gets interesting. They said once you actually have the job, the real dystopia begins. Young people feel as if jobs offer far less mentorship and more micromanaging.
I believe it.
Stevie Stevens, that's a cool name. Stevie Stevens, who is 27 and lives in Columbus, told me she left a full-time job in July at an exhibition design production firm because she felt hyper-scrutinized and under-supported. Managers expect you to do 6 jobs in a 40-hour work week. Well, that's always been the case.
That's actually true, yeah. But it's not new. Trust me, it's not. You're just now seeing it. Not new.
It's not new. My company had mediocre benefits and offered little to no professional growth or training, she told me. Not all companies do because they hired you to do that job. They don't want you moving out of that position. Right? Well,
not just that. I mean, we can tell you, though, that if you have a bad manager, they're going to micromanage everything you do and give you little help. And that's just a bad manager.
Yeah. Now, this is interesting because I had this happen at a job that I did not stay at very long.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, actually. Yeah. I know exactly which one you mean.
Yeah, she said that what she calls surveillance state technology apps that synthesize her personal data to determine her level of effort are part of the feeling of micromanagement. She doesn't have benefits through her work now and deals with more uncertainty as a freelancer. She's happier because she has autonomy and control over her time. For past several years, employers have used bossware to track worker productivity. A Times investigation in 2022 found that across professional fields and pay grades, employers were tracking keyboard use, movements and phone calls, and docking employees for time that they perceive to be idle. I get it. You don't want to be paying somebody to make a 2-hour personal call. I get that. But you're hiring a human, right? And humans are going to human. Humans have to poop.
I know. When you worked the one job, every time, it never failed. They would call about something when Kneon was in the bathroom.
Oh yeah, I worked remotely. Yeah.
Or was like, he just ran like somewhere for 5 minutes, but he worked earlier than his hours or later than his hours, and he just had to go somewhere to pick something up or something. It was right back, and sometimes it was related to things he had to do for like the work, and they'd always call then and be like, why aren't you doing anything? And it's like, but I was.
They would call.
Actually, you worked more remotely than you did in the office.
I did, and they could see it because I actually the arrangement I had with them. Now the company I worked for was actually a government adjacent company, so we had a secure portal that I'd remotely work on my desktop there. So all the data was technically on the computer in the building. And I was just tapping into it to do the work remotely, just, layman's terms. But yeah, they knew what I was doing. They could see exactly what I was doing. If they wanted to sit there and turn the monitor on my computer in my office, which I still had an office there, they could see stuff moving around. So it wasn't like they didn't know what was going on because I was controlling everything remotely. But they knew like I'd go pick the kids up from school because the elementary school at that point was, practically in our backyard. It was, walking distance. So we go pick up the kids or whatever. And that's when the boss would be like, hey, I need something. You weren't here at 3:30. I'm like, yeah, because that's when I go pick my kids up.
Right, and you worked earlier and later, and you worked on weekends and crap. Yeah. You weren't doing when you were in office.
Literally rolled out of bed. A lot of times I would, and you can vouch, I wouldn't even get dressed yet. I would roll out of bed and start working immediately, and I'd get dressed once I got some stuff done, answered some emails or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. And the thing is, and you worked way more hours, but then they would, so this is not a new thing. It sucks. Another one he had that was a boss would literally be in like Google Docs, and as you were writing stuff, they would like literally watch what you do and start writing you notes about what you were writing.
Oh,
as you're
okay. So
writing it.
that job, I don't even put on my resume. That was literally the worst boss I have had in my
That's who I think of when
life.
micromanaging was that person.
This person was an insecure, know nothing wreck who basically, as far as I could tell, her husband ran the business. She didn't know shit, but she wanted to look like she was running the business. So her job was to micromanage people. She didn't do anything herself. She would just basically sit on her computer all day. Even though she could come in and talk to you, she'd sit on her computer and watch you work in Google Docs at the time. And they were relatively new then, but she could see like if you're typing stuff. And she would like literally put notes in the Google Doc as you're working. Like I wasn't done with my sentence yet. And she's like, you misspelled that. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Just let me do my job. I'll give you the it's like it was literally like having somebody over your shoulder, resting their head on your shoulder and watching everything you're doing. I'm like, do you want to ratatouille this? Do you want to crawl on my head and control me that way? Like, yeah, I'll put a big hat on. You could, because that's what it felt like. It felt like I was a damn puppet. I was there for, I don't even know, it was like 2 months. I'm like, I can't stand you. You're a crazy bitch. And I left. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. This is insane. So I get that. If everybody's acting like that now I've worked for ad agencies before where we had billable hours and we would have to do things in increments of 15 minutes. But that's standard.
That's not the same thing. Yeah.
No, it wasn't like, I mean, if I'd used the bathroom, they weren't asking me why, how dare I use the bathroom or whatever. Now, if I left the building for an hour, they'd probably be like, where the hell did you go? But they said, yeah, kind of tracking doesn't count for things like conversations with peers, thinking, or if you work in a warehouse, taking a rest so your body doesn't fall apart. You're not allowed to. That's what the machines are for. At least older workers knew a time before this tracking was ubiquitous, and at this point might be senior enough to have the leverage to push back against the most extreme types of surveillance. It's all about maximizing revenue, maximizing profit, but also I think people abused freedom that they had. I think that the older generation will also tell you when we were at work, we were working. Mm-hmm. Like it was our job. You know what I'm saying? You're not on your phone. You're not, whatever, on Twitter if it's not your job to be a social media manager. And that's,
I feel personally attacked. Anyway.
No. I'm just saying that back in the day, there was more, I think, of a work ethic where people knew they went to work. It wasn't fun time. You might have had some friends at work or whatever, but your job was your job and your home life was your home life. And now I think on some, and this is just a theory on my part, I think on some level the lines have been blurred.
Well, I think that's what they're complaining about. It's like it's all blurred, and that's, you need to have a work time and then, free time, and they're not. And I think that's what they're complaining about.
They said young worker despair has been rising in the U.S. for about a decade.
It's been rising across everybody. It's not just you.
It's everybody, everything, everywhere. I think everybody's just on a knife's edge at this point. Yearly federal health survey of 400,000 Americans focused on how many bad mental health days.
There are good ones? Sorry.
One's described as containing stress, depression, and problems with emotions a worker had in the past month.
Like I said, there are good ones.
This whole mental health day thing, this is a new thing because we never had mental health days. In fact, stress, depression, and problems sometimes came from your boss, and it was just something you had to deal with to make money to go home and live your life, right? To have a house.
Not saying it's right, but it's right, reality.
But it is like you put up with it, and then you have to almost be able to compartmentalize your work self, not like severance, right? But like you have to compartmentalize your work self from your home life. And this is why you should, because you might deal with all kinds of abuse and bullshit at work.
I love this. Sorry. They just found that workers under 25, mental health is now so poor that they're genuinely unhappy as their unemployed counterparts, especially with women and less educated. I'm like, you know what? The mental stress and that has been going on for years. So these people have just dealt with it. There's this mentality, this idea that it's all new and it's all worse now. And I don't think it is. I think it's just that you guys are so connected and you spent your whole life, you're taking a fart or a shit and you're posting about it on social media. And you're like,
Sometimes both. Guys, yeah. I did both. I sharted.
I'm just saying,
Hashtag
like,
Shark Squad.
Here's what I'm eating for lunch. Here, I sneezed. Let me tell you all about it. And my cat made a funny face. You guys are so overly connected that, you have to share every damn thing. That doesn't mean that you are, you're going to get worse than other people. It's just that you are so used to talking about it. Everybody else just didn't. It was reality. It was life. You go home and try to forget about it. It wasn't worth mentioning because it was just part of your day. I'm not saying it's right or it's good, but I think you have a whole bunch of people that are just so overly connected and they have to talk about every little thing that they think it's something new when it's not.
I am going to postulate that a lot of this is by design, and it's to, well, I'm going to tell you, because Gen Z, they're more connected than they've ever been. They seem to get, in a lot of ways, they get discouraged. They want to be, they're talking about this other article where they said they're addicted to location sharing. They have to be permanently online. I think this is about training people to give up their freedom for the promise of a better tomorrow that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah, there's no better tomorrow because they're like under the impression that, if there's socialism, if there's this stuff, and we have,
that's
whatever,
where I was going with it.
Socialism. You're going to be able to sit at home and do whatever you want, and everything's going to be paid for. It's like, no, because the jobs still have to get done. So you're going to be required to work. You're not going to be allowed to just sit at home and take money or whatever. You're going to be required to work or, give some contribution to society to earn what you get. But you're never going to be able to get past a certain point. Even though you work hard, you'll get what you need, and that's sometimes not even that, and that's all you'll have. You won't be able to live the American dream or do any of that stuff because only people that are in charge somehow still have all the money and nice houses and stuff. They'll get to get whatever they want, but you won't. I don't just go research this. It's not that complicated.
It's always been this way, though.
It's stuff. It has not worked.
I'm not saying it's right, but look throughout all of human history. Everybody throughout the history of the human race, for the most part, has had it worse than you with your new cell phone and your new this and your new that, whatever.
Oh, yeah, I know. Talk about being stressed. How about the people that had to go to war? How about all that, our parents' generation and our grandparents' generations that, they're 18 and they're out there, getting shot up. Let's talk about that. You want to talk about being stressed. Oh my God, they're micromanaging me and telling me to do more stuff. You're not out there getting shot at.
The Great Depression, when guys would kill for a job and there were no jobs to be had, so they would have to go clear across the country looking for work and leave their families and hope to God their families are okay.
Some literally would kill for jobs.
Would kill for jobs. And they were willing to do anything to provide for their families. And try being 12 years old and being sent down into the coal mines.
Yes, I know.
Right?
Come on. We're expected to do stuff, and we don't like it. And I'm miserable because they micromanage me. And if you look at what the micromanagement probably is, it's something probably ridiculous. It's the same thing everybody else has dealt with. It's that you're used to being overly connected and talking about everything you do.
Yeah, I think that's by design. I think the powers that be are trying to create a generation of people that are completely dependent on technology and are dissatisfied with the way things are, so they hand control over to somebody else. That is my tinfoil hat theory.
The best thing you can do is not be connected 24/7. You're not going to be as miserable. To understand that, yes, sometimes jobs suck. I mean, we've all been there. I'm not telling you to stay there. Find something you think you'd like to do better, but keep the job until you find something else. It's easier to get a job when you have a job. And then find something that you feel like where you belong and you don't feel like you're being, so micromanaged or whatever, because I'm sure it exists out there. And I get it. It sucks, but it's always disillusioning when you're coming out and you're young and you're coming into the workforce and there's no place for you. It's been like that for a long time. And now that a lot of the in-person jobs have shut down, it's going to be even worse because now it's going to be replaced by AI. So yes, I agree, but you're not the only ones who've dealt with this.
AI still can't do the plumbing. AI still can't do the yard work. AI still can't, build.
Start a dog poop pickup business and make all kinds of money.
There was a guy, we talked about that in a previous video. There's a guy who did that. He was an executive. He got laid off. He couldn't find work because he was too qualified, which also happens. He was too qualified for jobs, so he basically started a dog shit business. But then he turned that dog shit business because he had the executive skills. He turned that into like some multi-million-dollar thing and sold it or franchised it or something.
I know.
So it's like,
they were talking about one person about being freelance and they like how they have more freedom now. And it's like, yeah, you have more freedom and they're happier, but you don't get but they also want the reassurance of having everything handed to them. It's like, you can't have both ways. Do I think people are underpaid? Yes. People have been underpaid for years. Prices have gone through the roof. Inflation is absolutely ridiculous. Do I think you have a reason to be upset? And colleges are you know, what they're charging is ridiculous. Do I think you have a reason to be upset? Yes. Do I think it's only you? No. Do I think that, you know, somewhere the truth's in the middle? Yes.
Yeah. I get what they're going for, but like, I don't know. I feel like there's not enough self-reliance. But again, this Gen Z is very much like two different generations smushed together. You've got these people which feel like they're millennials but worse, like the worst aspects of millennials. But then on the other hand, you have all these kids that want to roll things back to the 1950s and you know, they want to go back to... I think
it's more the 80s, but yes.
Yeah, but just, well, the dress, you know, they're doing the trad wife thing and all that. But
yeah. That's a minority. That's a small group.
Yeah, it's weird. But they said, yeah, the reason, this is the experts said, the reason they think that young workers are so unhappy is that they expect to be happier than previous generations, in part because they're using social media to compare themselves to peers. Yep, only to find themselves disappointed by the tedium of their own 9-to-5 jobs. The other hypothesis is in line with what I'm hearing from young people. The workplace is worse.
How do they know? That's my next question. How do you know it's markedly worse when you weren't there before now?
Yeah, I don't know. Because, I mean, look, it's we ran into this with one of our own interns. They were kind of bored by the daily tedium. And I'm like, well, that's 90% of what it takes to get what we do done. You only see the iceberg, right? You only see the public facing part. You don't see the back end that makes it go. And that part is boring as fuck. Mm-hmm. So put some music on.
It's a lot more work than the other side.
It is that yeah, you see that. I mean, it's just like a animation or putting on a show or whatever. People are like, oh, it's a half an hour show, so it's a half an hour of work to make a half an hour show. It's like, no, there's probably hundreds and hundreds of man hours and many people working on the show to get it to where it's at. And people don't see that. They're just like, I just want to do the fun part. And same with social media. They just see the fun part. Oh, here I am on the beach with my whatever.
Do I think employers are being ridiculous? Yes, I think some employers are probably being ridiculous, and especially at a time when they're desperate for employees, it's probably not a good time to be ridiculous. But if you're out there comparing yourself constantly to your peers and being constantly so connected that you don't feel safe unless you're overly connected and overly reliant on everybody else to have your back, then you're going to be miserable.
Yeah,
you're making some of your miseries your own doing. But I can tell you for a fact. The whole idea of this, where does the government should just pay us a living wage and we should be able to sit back and do what we want because it's too dystopian. That's never going to happen. Even if you would go with a socialist, whatever, to work, you have to still work.
Yeah, just at least now you've got a choice.
You have choice now, yeah.
Well, this is where it gets hopeful, and I talked about this before. They said Gen Z has a few disparate reactions to the state of play. They said they see entrepreneurship as potentially safer than corporate work at this point. Yes. I would support
that. Go for it.
I think that's it. I mean, we're kind of at a place right now where if we're not doing this and the other stuff we do, we're still probably going to find something else that we do or that we own because there is no job security.
Right? And we've been telling you that. So if you want to take an entrepreneurship path, especially if you have family that can help support you in the interim, then by all means, please do it. And they said that one person was disillusioned because they saw the family member spend decades at a Fortune 500 to get laid off. And yes, you're like, all act like you're like only ones that have problems. People spend years someplace and then they lay them off and they'll find ways to screw them out of the retirements and stuff too.
Well, okay, so this is where the unionization, because I'm hearing a lot more talk about unionizing in the last couple of years than I've ever heard, right? They said the other path is unionization. They wondered if the renewed support for unions is an antidote to this misery. No, I'm telling you, what they're going to do is they're going to fire you as soon as they can. Because
you're asking for it.
You pretty much cost more.
Because you're asking for even they're going to be unionized.
You're asking for it.
That's not how I meant it. Because you're asking them to be unionized, and if somebody else changes in there, they'll get rid of you first.
I I would argue that there is no changing an established company. There is no changing it from within. People keep thinking, well, if I only work in that company and I embed myself like a tick and I can change the culture. No, if you want what you want, you're going to have to make it happen for yourself. And there's a lot of tedium involved in that. And it's not all
It's a
fun
lot
and
of work.
games.
It's not easy. If you want an easier path, then taking the 9 to 5 that you don't like is probably the easier path.
Yes, but don't bitch about it because you're basically trading up, or you're trading your freedom for security, right? And
yeah, having them both is not usually an option. I mean,
No.
it happens, but
you have to work. You have to work to get there, right? You got to work to get there. Anyway, a lot of stuff going on. We're gonna wrap this up, I think.
yeah.
You're like, yeah, let's wrap it up. One last shout out for Geeky Sparkles Kickstarter. Check it out. A couple days yet until we end it, and we'll probably leave it open for like a week or two after, till we run out of pins that we pre-ordered. Thank you very much for the support, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.